of cutting it close this week.
No, we're not.
This is,
We've done a Thursday record before.
Have we recorded on Thursday before?
I think the previous episode.
Oh, I think there's a trend, actually. Yeah.
For our listeners, when we premiered, we had like 4 in the bag. We were
so far ahead. We had like this huge buffer.
It was great.
To the point where I felt so pro because people would be like, so which one did you just record? I just listened to the one about Star Citizen, and in my head I was like, oh man, yeah, well, I mean, we did that one like a month ago, okay?
And now we're down to the wire. But it's just because we do such rigorous research, such thorough, intensive research, and we want to bring to you the actual correct information. And also
this week,
life is hard.
This week we can blame the fact that your 2 favorite hosts are now uncle and aunt.
Who?
That's us.
I was like, who? Jad and Robert?
No, it's
Karen and Georgia? Those are podcast host references.
Right.
But no, yes, the ones you are currently listening to we've leveled up in our adulthood and are now, there is no gender neutral term for aunts and uncles.
Wow, what a bummer.
Ankles. There we go.
Crankles.
That doesn't make any sense.
Bankles, banana. Anyway.
It's ankles.
Are you sure there's not because there's parents.
Parents,
right?
siblings,
cousins. What's a group of uncles and aunts?
I don't know, but there's not one for nieces and nephews, and there's not one.
Nibblings.
Yeah, but that's just coming into the lexicon now.
Okay, well, let's lex up
ankles.
Ankle? That's already a thing.
I'm calling them ankles.
I think we need something better.
Well, then ask our listeners. Email us.
Listeners, what should we call ourselves collectively to our newfound nibbling?
What is a gender-neutral way to say aunts and uncles? Tell us. Give us your suggestions.
Email us, cultistjustweird@gmail.com. By the way, welcome to our listeners. I feel compelled to welcome this time because I'm like, we have such a diversity of listeners now. It's like we have people here. We have people
here in the studio?
Here in the studio. We have people, I meant here in the US, sorry. Also in like Estonia and
I love our
Australia.
Estonian listeners.
And we also have people that only now exist in the mental wonderland of others potentially listening.
Oh, damn, we've reached the wonderland.
Yeah.
Shit.
So we have people all over the goddamn place.
Yeah, it's true.
So what we really need is Martians. So hurry up, Tesla or whoever it is that's doing that.
What is the thing where when you learn about something, then you start seeing it everywhere, the psychological phenomenon?
Confirmation bias?
Confirmation. If that's what that is, I am confirmation. No, it's not confirmation bias. Not? There's a specific effect. I think it's like the something effect. Where
it's the whenever I used to travel with my family, we would always see shit about the place we traveled in the headlines.
Yeah.
It's that. Yeah.
It's when you or you learn a new word and you start seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's happened with me and tulpas.
Really?
Both people talking about tulpas, tulpa content, and then also storylines in television shows and things where they don't use the word tulpa, but there are tulpas. It's very interesting. Tulpas are becoming mainstream.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's thanks to us, really.
It's all because of us.
It's mostly about us.
Definitely television shows that came out last year, they have us to thank for popularizing tulpas.
Listen, man. Time is not a linear thing, okay? It ebbs and flows and yeah. It's all
not helping you out.
Us.
Not helping you out.
Right, yeah, you're being you're good in giving
digging
co-host.
Your own grave. Tell us your topic.
Thanks for reacting here.
Tell us your topic.
Great.
Give it.
No, not yet because we still have some business to contend
to contend with.
No, this is not contend. This is good business because I have to give a shout out to our charismatic leader folks from Patreon. So we just started our own Patreon. It's
real.
It's
we actually did it.
We actually did it. It's pretty rudimentary so far. It's basically just there to give us a repository for some of the extra content that we've been sort of editing in and out of these different episodes.
There's always extra stuff that we want to share that just doesn't make it into the podcast episode. So yeah, having a place where we can kind of drop that material for y'all that's really what our Patreon is.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows, maybe one day, we'll charge $100 for the top tier and there'll be 1 million people subscribed. And
what do we give people for $100?
I don't know, like I'll like sexy nudes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like I was watching your face try to come up with the right joke for that.
What about
the great?
Thanks. What about like a culturist weird calendar? Where it's like
a sexy calendar.
Sexy calendar, yeah.
But of like cult leaders.
I was gonna say us, but
there's only 2 of us, and there's 12 months.
Yeah, we'll just we'll have to repeat
it could be
months.
You, me, and then 10
sexy tulpas.
Our sexy tulpas, our 10 favorite fans, followers, contributors, our 10 favorite listeners.
Well, our 3 favorite listeners right now are the Charismatic Leader Patreon supporters.
True.
And so I want to give a shout out to Becky.
Thank you, Becky.
Pam.
Thank you,
Should
Pam.
I use last names or no?
Probably not.
What do you think? Okay.
I think no.
Becky, Pam, and Alyssa.
Thank you, all of you.
And just to be clear, that's not Alyssa producer. That's Alyssa fan that has followed us for some time on Instagram and obviously listens to the show. And
I hope she doesn't.
Thank you. Just doesn't listen to the show. She's just like, I just like your Instagram.
That's what I hope.
Yeah, so you heard it here. We hope that our fans don't actually listen to the show. That's what Kayla wants.
That's my dream in life. That's my dream with this podcast. But
awesome.
I mean, like, it's hard to say. There's not like quite the correct word for when somebody becomes your patron on Patreon. We haven't quite like nailed the word for how good that feels. You know what I mean? Like, thank you is not quite correct.
Warmth.
Well, I can't say I warmth you.
I warmth you.
I want to say
I
thank
warmth
you.
all 3 of you. No, but it that's the feeling, right? Is this feeling of it felt very nice. It felt very like, oh my God, somebody like gave us money because they are enough of a fan of the show and like what we're doing. Like it was just super, I don't know, validating. It just, I don't know, it just felt really good.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you guys. You are the best, and you are my favorite charismatic leaders that we have talked about on the show so far. Do you want to talk about the actual? Are we supposed to say this is Culture Just Weird?
Shit.
Yeah. This is Chris.
We've been recording for 10 minutes, and this is Kayla.
Oh my God, 10 minutes? We gotta get a move on.
This is Kayla.
This is Chris.
And this is Culture Just Weird.
Culture Just Weird. Let's move on, Micro Machine style.
We're gonna speed through this. We're gonna do 2 times the regular speed, right?
2x speed. Here we go.
Let's do this. I'm excited. I don't know if I should be excited for this topic. I know you've done a very good job of kind of keeping a lid on this one. I have no idea what it is. You haven't said one way or another if it's cool or boring and lame. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's mine, so it's boring and lame. I usually try to bore our audience, so
that's how we get them
hopefully,
sweet Patreon bucks.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully I'll achieve that goal.
I'm very interested to know what is
well,
going
part
on.
of it, okay, so part of it
you
was
ordered a book that you only started reading last night?
Oh, where's the book? I need it. Oh, here it is.
It looks like a Bible. It's very
Yeah, I'm glad the book actually got here in time. I was a little bit worried. But yeah, so the reason for that, I think, is that I have like another 2 topics in the pipe, and one of them was the one we were talking about last time. If you remember from my episode on creativity, I was like, oh man, the next one is going to be shitty too. That's not actually this one. That one's still on hold just a little bit. I'm waiting for some threads to come in on that.
Right, okay.
So I actually had to find a different one to do. And I wasn't really sure. I wanted to do something that like wasn't so bummer. Because last time I was such a bummer.
Last time you were a bummer. We had a non-bummer.
And then you were like, yay, tulpas. And I was like sitting there kind of going like, oh, I want to do something that's not shitty.
It's nice to do things that are nice.
So I found one that was like, I would say 90% not shitty.
All right.
95-ish.
That's similar to tulpa.
That's pretty good. So into the topic we go. But I kind of have a format now.
Oh, God.
I've kind of typecast myself.
Is this about white supremacists again?
No. Format, not like theme. Format, structure, how I go about my episodes.
You're going to start with a question?
Yeah. I kind of have to stick with my thing, right? It's like my thing. So I'm going to start with a question.
Okay.
What do you do every morning when you wake up?
I'll sometimes make myself a cup of tea. Sometimes I'll do a meditation. Sometimes I'll just immediately start my like face washing routine and get out the door.
Okay. And if you didn't have anything like meditation, I was going to ask you if you about the whole concept of making your bed in the morning.
Can't do it because you're in it.
We don't really do that because I'm in it. And then by the time I get up, I don't do it. But Why is it recommended that you make your bed in the morning?
Because everything starts with a good morning.
That's right. Even though it literally has no direct effect on anything else you do.
Are you doing making your bed?
God, I wish.
Okay, you're not. Okay. God. I was literally about to lose
Holy
my
shit.
mind.
I'm sorry that I can't be that awesome.
That would be the greatest topic of all time.
So today we're talking about the cult of making beds.
But I could totally see that being a thing. Like, people being obsessed with, like, you have to make your bed in the morning if you want to live a decent life.
That would be
oh my God.
Awesome.
I want to write a show about that.
All right. You know what? Actually, this is the end of this episode. We have to go right. But no, it doesn't actually affect anything you do, right? But what it does is it brings you into a state of mind that changes how you approach the rest of your day.
Right.
That's probably why you meditate in the morning, right? It's like a good time to kind of like level set. And it's like, whenever I meditate in the morning, I always feel like I get like way more done.
Right.
I do that sometimes too.
I'm more likely to make a green smoothie after I meditate.
Yeah, exactly.
Than if I don't.
So that brings us to not yet the topic, but to one of our very own beloved cult or just weird criteria. Ritual.
Ritual. That's hella... Making your bed is hella ritualistic.
It's exactly a ritual. And again, it's not the topic of the episode. Don't worry, we're still actually talking about a group. But based on the group we'll be talking about, the presence of ritual is particularly important. So I thought this would be a good episode to pay extra special attention to one of our criteria as the theme du jour. Because I also like to theme my episodes, you know.
Right. You're good at that. I try to do
it.
The
theme
I can't.
Today. Theme is ritual.
The theme is ritual. This is freaking me out, though. Because,
Why?
like... when you said making your bed as a ritual, it kind of sent me down this rabbit hole of like, is every action we take ritual?
Well, I don't think every action is, but it's pretty freaking ubiquitous.
Work ritual?
Yeah. We do it every morning. Literally millions, perhaps billions of people in the morning. Well, I guess it's not all simultaneously since we're at different points on the earth. No, but of course it's a ritual because like everybody's doing it the same way. We're all doing similar things. We're all listening to this podcast, for example.
Wait, so you're saying you need to have a lot of people in order for something to be a ritual?
No, I don't think. No. I'm not saying you need that. I'm just saying that like I think that's something that makes it ritualistic. Is if it's like a shared experience. There's like we'll get to that.
It's your theme. It's your theme. Let's go.
We'll get to that. So that's the reason I wanted to ask you about morning routines, is to illustrate just how powerful rituals are. And this is, of course, something you and I have talked about a lot over the years. But for our listeners, rituals are all around us and involve a wide variety of activities and purposes, as we just mentioned, and are hugely important.
It's like 90% of the reason why we had a wedding.
Well, I mean, that's 90% of the reason why anybody has a wedding.
Well,
right?
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if people are going like, and I'll probably cut this part out because I'm about to make a bunch of people sound like an idiot. Like, oh, Perfect. I wonder what symbolic actions we can take in order to psychologically embed this moment as important for us in our lives and mark it.
Of course, that's not.
I don't think most people are. I don't think a lot of people are conscious of that.
I think you don't give people enough credit.
I think that I mean, maybe, but I've literally never heard anyone I know even hint at that, and I've known a lot of people get married. Have you known anyone to say anything like that?
Maybe not explicitly, but like I think a lot of people understand that the ritual of marriage is something that sort of like psychologically like cements something in place. Like there's no physical difference for a lot of people before and after, and especially now that people tend to live together before they get married. Bunch of
what?
What's the word? I'm trying to think of the word. I couldn't think of the word.
Living in sin?
Yeah, living in sin. Everybody's living in sin. Actually, it's funny because we just went to a wedding and I had like 90% of the script written already. And then we went to this wedding and I was like, oh, ritual everywhere.
Ritual literally everywhere.
I am just swimming in it. But anyway, ritual is powerful. It literally changes your brain, alters your mindset, and in the case of making your bed, does that for the rest of the day. But think also about meal rituals and how important those are for our ongoing social relationships. Think about coming of age rituals and how powerfully they affect people and mark their lives, from like bar mitzvahs to quinceañeras to graduation ceremonies. And athlete luck rituals, right? With like lucky rabbit's foots and rubbing this
Niles Crane's head.
Yeah, exactly. Or like free throws. Like literally there's a different ritual for every person in the NBA to do their free throws. It doesn't actually affect the way the ball travels through the air, but it puts you in this like similar mindset that recalls all of the bajillion times that you shot a free throw before, and it just like affects your muscle memory and everything.
It's like when I had that super important interview on Monday, and like whole way up and the whole way there, I was doing affirmations. I was literally just saying over and over,
a ritual.
I am a charming person, and that's not, I'm not a charming person,
no,
but it's making my brain think I am, and then I'll present as such.
You. Yeah.
Every time that one came up, I was like, I don't believe this one's not quite applicable, but I'll say it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, act as if, right? But yeah, and we actually talked about those athlete rituals in our episode about cargo cults, remember?
Right. We talked about Fraser Crane's head.
Yeah, we talked about,
Niles Crane's head.
We talked about Niles Crane's head. And the whole point of that was that the power of ritual for the followers of John Frum is so immense that it put them in a mindset to conquer their own oppression and forge a destiny for their community.
Damn, that was succinct.
That's freaking powerful.
Yeah.
Right? And again, it's like, doesn't do anything physically. In fact, it seems weird, right? They were like walking around with American flags and whatnot, but like the effect that it had by altering their mindset is extremely powerful. So I read up a little bit on rituals, of course, on Wikipedia, and you might imagine the topic is immense and studied from all angles, anthropological, communications, religion, culture. I mean, the see also for one of the pages that they had on ritual included such diverse topic links as secular religion.
What?
Obsessive compulsive disorder, yoga as exercise, and my personal favorite, Taiwanese chicken beheading rituals.
What?
So I'm not going to go into that. That is really a Wikipedia page, and I really did obviously click on that and read it.
Explain
that can
briefly?
That's supplemental content, baby.
Jeez.
But the point is that like on that Wikipedia page about rituals,
those are four very different things.
Four very different. There's more too, but as you just mentioned, there's just no end really to the types of rituals and where they appear in our lives. So I can't really dig into it too much here because it's too large. But what I will do is give you the sort of the broad strokes of what I learned. So first, rituals have several defining features. Wikipedia lists them as formalism, or the expressions and the code of the ritual. So that's like the actual, what is it? What are you doing? What are the symbols? What are all those actual, actions you take? And it's probably what we mostly think of when we think of ritual, is all those things, right? The ceremonies and whatnot. It's sort of like the meat of the ritual. They also contain aspects of, this is the second thing, of traditionalism. So rituals also can be an appeal to history. And they can be traditional. At first I was like, what? Those are the same. But they can be traditional without being particularly formal, or vice versa. So the example given when I read the Wikipedia page was Thanksgiving dinner. Very traditional, not very formal.
But it is, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So another aspect is invariance. So some rituals, the whole intent is to perform it in precisely the same way over and over and over. So anybody that's been to like a Catholic Mass, for example,
right.
You can probably almost never remember any individual Catholic Mass because they all go the exact same way, the same songs in the same order, and the same everything, doing the bread, all of it's in the same order, the same way. Sacrifice is another aspect common to some rituals, particularly religious rituals, but also some coming of age rituals. So if you think about the scarification rituals of sub-Saharan African tribes, and there are a bunch I looked up, there's too many to list here, but this is a form of personal sacrifice via ritual. A side note when I was looking at this was that I read that scarification is used in rituals for many darker skinned cultures because tattoos are harder to see on their bodies compared to like, you might like a ritual for like, a European skinned person might involve like getting a tattoo. But for these tribes, a lot of what they do is scarification because it's easier to see than like skin ink.
Right.
Very interesting. Anyway, the last element I read about was performance, which kind of needs no explanation. So many rituals are performance. It's like hard to think of at least
non-performative ritual.
Yeah, or at least one that's non-personal, right? Like personal rituals aren't necessarily performative. Like I'm just doing my, brushing my teeth every morning. But almost everything that's not personal, that involves like a social element, is very performative.
Right.
Any questions about the elements of ritual so far?
No, I'm just trying to think of an example to contradict that last point there, and I can't think of one.
All right, keep on it. Yeah, I believe in you.
What about... Oh!
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay. Wait. Yeah, what about, like, tooth fairy shit?
What about it?
that's something that is like, you do it solo.
Wait, so Tooth Fairy isn't personal, though. Tooth Fairy is a social ritual.
Tooth Fairy is a social. That's what I'm saying.
And you're saying it's social but not performative?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's not really. It's pretty non-performative. It's pretty just like between you and your parents.
You and
the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
And a nasty-ass tooth under your pillow.
Gross.
In any case, so good counterexample. But I think by and large, they tend to be performative if they're public. But now I'm going to list some of the types of, so those are elements of rituals. Now I'm going to list some of the types of rituals, or kind of think of it as like some of the things that they're used for. So we talked about rites of passage.
Okay.
And I think this one's pretty clear and obvious. We mentioned a few times already, but they tend to be about change and transformation. Some rituals are also commemorative, so they perform a function basically like a clock or a calendar. So like think about the Times Square New Year's Eve celebration, right? With the ball dropping. That helps us mentally process the passage of a year, for example. It's like our own little calendar in the brain.
Right, right.
And some rituals are rituals of exchange, like Christmas or birthdays or wedding showers. And then this next one was pretty interesting to me. According to Wikipedia, some rituals are referred to as rituals of affliction.
Ooh, what does that mean?
In other words, they are intended to protect, heal, augment, or otherwise process somebody of ill health.
Ooh.
So fertility rites fall under this, which are ubiquitous. Prayers of healing fall under this category.
Wow.
There are also rituals of abundance and or lack, such as Thanksgiving. We already talked about that. That's a ritual of abundance. Or on the opposite side of things, ritual of lack, Ramadan, where you're fasting. And finally, there are rituals that have to do with political power. And not just like 20th century politics, but this could also mean like European monarch coronation ceremonies are highly ritualistic.
Right, right.
Or like the Hunger Games are rituals about political power.
Don't bring up the Hunger Games. It's traumatizing.
Okay, so we talked about aspects of ritual. We've talked about the genres. Now let's talk very briefly why rituals exist.
I just love the concept of genres. Of rituals.
I saw this thing online the other day. You probably saw it. It was like a compilation of like 50 or 60 in a row Alex Trebek saying genre, because apparently he says it like the correct way, which sounds kind of silly.
Is it genre?
No, it's like
genre.
It's like
Jenner.
No, it's like genre.
Oh, it's like French, like genre.
It's like genre. You have to like swallow the re. It's not genre. It's like genre. And he just there's a video of him doing it like 70 times in a row.
Don't want to watch that at all.
You definitely want to.
Genre.
Right. So why rituals exist? Very, very briefly, because honestly, this is like so broad that it's hard to even formulate categories, because rituals exist for almost any reason you can think of, for strengthening social bonds, for maintaining social structure, upending social structure, for communicating important information across time. I don't know if we have time to talk about this, but do you remember the radioactive cats?
Yes, like the cat. That's literally the first thing that made me think of was the cats. To our listeners.
Okay, this may be supplemental content.
Well, no, I don't even think we should just explain it. I think we should we'll put a link to
the 99PI episode about it.
Somewhere, either in our Patreon or in our show notes, somewhere there will be a link to the story about radioactive cats and their communication of messaging across time, and you have to listen.
It's one of my favorite episodes of 99PI, which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, ritual also exists for helping humans process emotions, conflicts, change, passage of time, for helping us deal with forces vastly outside of our control. I read an interesting story about an island community that has, get this, elaborate rituals for magically warding off sharks when they need to fish in the open ocean. But here's the kicker. They don't employ these rituals when they are fishing in their island lagoon where it is safe. So ritual helps them take necessary actions in the face of dangerous forces completely outside of their control.
Dang.
Which is really interesting, right? Because we think of like, okay, magic's not real, but like...
Totally is.
In a sense, the magical ritual, at least in this case, and I would, I guess, argue that this is just an example of many cases, magical warding rituals help you engage in dangerous activity against essentially exactly what these people were doing, right? Like they have to fish. They need the food. They cannot control whether sharks are going to come eat them. So they perform these rituals to sort of like put them in a mindset that allows them to do that.
It's like when you buckle your seatbelt on an airplane.
That's actually not true even a little bit.
Okay, it's like when you buckle your seatbelt on a bus. Oh, wait.
Most buses don't have seatbelts.
Because you're just going to die.
Okay, buses are actually by far the safest form of ground transportation, including the fact that they don't have seatbelts.
Safer than trains?
Road transportation. I don't know if they're safer than trains or not.
Anyway.
But buses are vastly safer than cars.
The insurance companies would rather pay for your funeral than have to pay for your disability.
Is that why you think that buses don't have seatbelts?
That is why buses don't have seatbelts.
That is not even why they don't have seatbelts. And they
talk about it in Fight Club. The only
Fight Club is wrong about that, and they're wrong about the plane thing. Definitely buckle your seatbelt on a plane. It actually significantly increases your chance of surviving a crash, which is pretty damn good, actually, if you have a seatbelt on.
There's actually a more important reason you should buckle your seatbelt on a plane. An actually more important reason.
Than surviving?
Than surviving a crash, yes.
What?
It helps you survive turbulence.
If it's really bad turbulence.
The vast majority of injuries on planes happen because of turbulence, and generally it's because people don't have their seatbelts buckled and they fly up and hit the
Just
ceiling.
So you know, if there's ever turbulence that's that bad on a plane that I'm on,
you might lose your mind.
I'll just die anyway because my head will explode.
I think your heart might actually explode.
My heart would just jump out of my. It wouldn't explode. It would come out of my chest.
It would physically fly across the room.
It would grow little cartoon arms. It would crawl out of my chest. It would have one of those little hobo sacks with a stick in the bag.
Just walk off.
And it would just run out and it would jump out one of the plane hatches. And I would be dead.
Yeah.
That's what would happen. In any case, I could maybe use some rituals for surviving psychologically during turbulence in a plane. That's extreme. So just a few extra words here about the power of ritual. Sometimes they can feel superstitious or irrational. And certainly on this show, we're all we're skeptics, which I think is not necessarily incompatible with it. Scientifically speaking, rituals can have a great effect on how they allow our brains to process, learn, or change.
Right.
A lot of this comes from an article I read from Scientific American entitled Why Rituals Work. And the subtitle was, There Are Real Benefits to Ritual, Religious or Otherwise.
Right.
And the whole article is basically about what we said on the show here a few times, about the athlete rituals being effective, or the John Frum thing, and the winner's mindset, all the stuff we just mentioned. So, ritual is a ubiquitous part of the human experience across all cultures. It serves all cultures, by the way. There's no culture that is devoid of ritual. It serves dozens of, maybe even hundreds, possible functions. And so now I'd like you to think a little bit about the rituals we've discussed here on the show and some of the groups we've talked about. Actually, before that, question.
Yeah.
Why, in your estimation, and maybe this should have been my top of the episode question. This is even better. This is even better. Why, in your estimation, did we decide on the presence of ritual as one of our criteria, do you think?
I think that it came from because I think that was one of our earliest criteria. I think it came from our general lack of understanding of the. No, I'm serious. It was that was a off the top suggestion, and we were like, well, we think cults do this, but then as we did our research, it was one that stayed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It was kind of an assumption. We associated the word ritual with religiousness.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though, right? Is even though we were sort of amateurishly sort of clawing at what we thought cults were, I mean there's a reason why we picked that, and I think it's because a lot of the sort of religious or pseudo-religious, or maybe according to that one article, secular religious.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Thing includes a lot of ritual. It just does.
Right.
And one of the things that I find really interesting about the rituals we've talked about in the groups we've covered is just how much cult flavor they impart to groups. So think about Irvine, which is my favorite example of this. Irvine to me feels twice as culty because of all of the Irvine Company logos everywhere.
Right, for sure.
Right? Honestly, there's Stepford beige communities everywhere.
There's 400 in Orange County.
Alone, yeah.
If you go from Orange County all the way down to the border, it's 80% that.
Right. But only Irvine has that ubiquitous weird logo, right? And what about MLMs with their weird national pep rallies? And what if Teal didn't have her logo and paintings and YouTube rituals? Okay, actually, well, she'd probably still be really culty. But still, the point is, it feels to me like rituals provide a heavy dose of cult flavoring to the groups that employ them.
Right.
Groups that maybe otherwise, like Irvine, seem a little weird without them, but downright culty with them.
Okay, so what's the topic?
Keep that all in the back of your head, because we are going to revisit the importance and significance of ritual later in the show.
Oh, God.
But first, we have to talk about our citations. We got to do our ritual of citation.
Right.
Which is a ritual designed to confer legitimacy on what we are about to say in the minds of our listeners.
Well, and to give credit to all the people that were ripping off.
No, I don't care about that part.
It's 90% that.
No, for me, it's about the legitimacy
So
thing.
then it's 200% because it's 100% you legitimacy and 100% me credit. So then it's 200%.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's really good. I've already mentioned I use Wikipedia a whole bunch. I almost feel like we don't even need to say that anymore.
Right.
I also already mentioned Scientific American. There are also a bunch of online articles, some of which were from just like random individuals' websites, folks interested in historical knowledge. Some were from just other websites that just publish articles. An actual physical book
that you have here in the studio.
Which I have right here, and I'm going to let it drop so you can hear it. But yeah, crazy, right? Physical book. By the name, what is it called? Actually, tell our listeners.
Fraternal Organizations. Wait. The Greenwood Encyclopedia of American Institutions. Presents Organizations.
Fraternal Organization. The name of the actual title is Fraternal Organization.
By Alvin J. Schmidt.
Alvin J. Schmidt.
That is a book, a real one.
Oh, here's what we should do.
Oh. It's a real ass book.
That's my goal, to get ASMR in every episode. Anyway, sorry to wrap up. The citations, also an insurance website. We'll get to that.
What is your topic?
We'll get to that.
God.
So, as usual, I've already worded a lot before we get to our actual topic.
Yep.
As we can tell from the fact that you keep asking me. I'm a verbose person. I'm very sorry. But I want you to check out the name of the textbook I just cited. Fraternal Organizations.
Yes.
So indeed, today we are discussing one such organization. But before I reveal what it is, well, what the hell is a fraternal organization? I'm glad you asked, self. You've definitely heard of fraternal organizations.
Okay.
But what you may not know,
like an Elks Lodge,
is just how many groups are considered as loosely being in this category.
Oh, God.
So yes, the Elks Lodge is one of them. The most well-known one is probably the Freemasons.
See, that was top of mind.
Mm-hmm. But Elks Lodge is one of them too.
Okay.
They also include things like Rotary International.
Mm.
There's an old group, I'm not sure if they're still around, but called the Odd Fellows.
What?
Which apparently were huge in America, like in the time that they were huge. They were very huge, and I've never heard of them.
When were they huge?
Late 1800s.
Oh my God, the Odd Fellows.
The Shriners, you've probably heard of the Shriners,
yes.
But those are actually just a subset of Freemasons.
I knew that.
The Illuminati.
Oh, right. That's a real thing. Keep forgetting.
Yeah.
Not in the way that QAnon people think.
The Knights of Columbus. And literally hundreds more. In fact, you can see how thick this book is, and they go over these organizations.
That's a thick book.
It's like about 2 pages to an org.
What?
Maybe,
how many pages
maybe
is the book?
3.
How many pages is the book?
A little over 360. Yeah, just about 360 pages.
Don't care for that. That is too much.
There's a lot. In fact, college campus fraternities, if the name didn't give it away, have their roots in similar places as fraternal organizations.
Are sororities fraternal
and you might
organizations?
Consider them close cousins. Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I mean, they're not called frats, but I'm assuming that there's like, even though they call them sororities, they're still fraternal sororal organizations.
All right.
I don't know. I just made that up, but I'm pretty sure that they are. But yeah, you might consider frats essentially close cousins with fraternal organizations. Ones that took hold in university settings and gradually over time became tied tighter and tighter to the university system until they kind of became their own thing, the Greek system. But yeah, there are just like an enormous number of these groups, and sometimes they're also called secret societies or social clubs. Right. There's a bunch of names for them. They all tend to be very egalitarian within their ranks. In other words, you are all sort of brothers in a sense and help each other out. They're not necessarily egalitarian. They run the gamut outside of that, which we'll talk about in a little bit, or towards the end of the episode, actually.
Do you talk about NXIVM?
No, they're not a fraternal organization, as far as I know.
The group within NXIVM, that's the actual trouble, like where all the branding took place,
yeah,
was a secret society. It was like a fraternal organization, but within NXIVM.
Oh, that's whack.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of them, even though they have egalitarian sort of like, everybody's all brothers, they also have really elaborate hierarchies in many cases. Many of them are organized around ethnic or religious lines. And in fact, technically, I think the KKK is considered a fraternal order.
When you said like hierarchy, it just made me think of like their dumbass names, like Grand Dragon and whatever.
As ridiculous as their names are,
I know that they're common.
It's actually it turns out it's kind of common across fraternal organizations. So they're not the only ridiculous ones. They're more ridiculous because of their racism. I love that. Like I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do like a racism thing.
And then you did racism again.
And then I accidentally did racism again. But yeah, they run the gamut from Rotary, just trying to do charity work and hang out, to all the way to things that are a little less savory, but they're varied in their manifestation. Historically speaking, fraternal orders have their origins in a few different social phenomena. Broadly speaking, they fill an important community support function when that function isn't provided or is suppressed elsewhere. So in the Middle Ages, you had craft guilds in the church, and they provided all of those community support functions, right? Like they were the biggest thing in your life was church. And if you were part of the blacksmith guild, that was probably the second biggest thing, or maybe even the first.
Right.
However, as the guild system declined and even was outlawed in some cases, as I found out.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because some European political power structures would occasionally decide that the guild challenged their power too much. So as that happened and as more secularization happened in the post-Renaissance era, there was a pretty large social/communal vacuum left. And the earliest fraternal orders filled this in. It's no coincidence, for example, that Freemasonry was, first of all, founded in the middle of the 1600s, and second of all, uses a lot of the same hierarchical structures and symbology and rituals that guilds and churches do. And third of all is called Freemasons, which is either a direct reference to Masonry craft guilds or is a direct evolution from them. I didn't quite get into it enough to figure that out because this episode isn't actually about Freemasons, believe it or not. But to sum up, fraternal orders sprang up when guilds and the church sprang down. Sprang down. That's what you do. In England in the 1700s and 1800s...
You spring forward and you sprang back.
Sprang. In England in the 1700s and 1800s, there was a specific type of fraternal order.
What?
That came about called friendly societies.
Oh.
I know. Very, very British. Very like friendly societies.
That's so nice.
So polite. Which I'll talk a bit more about those later because their particular flavor is actually similar to our cult group today.
Ooh. Wait, we haven't talked about our cult group yet?
No, not yet. I haven't even mentioned them.
Oh my God.
I know. But fraternal order, I don't know if this is like good storytelling or horrible storytelling.
I think it's good.
I don't know. Like not telling you what it is yet.
I did it with tulpas.
Oh, that's true. You did. Okay. This is just revenge. But fraternal orders were big in America too, particularly the Freemasons in the 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the founding fathers were Freemasons, including George Washington himself, and allegedly a lot of the design of early America, both founding documents and even governmental architecture and structure, were influenced by Freemasonry.
Oh, shit.
There was a bit of a decline in fraternal orders here in the U.S. in the first part of the 1800s, and in fact, there was a whole political party dedicated to being anti-secret society.
What?
And there's a bunch more to tell you about why, and I think I'll probably save it for when we inevitably do an episode on the Freemasons.
Oh my God.
But
I want to know.
After the Civil War, America began what scholars now call the Golden Age of Fraternalism in America. This period of time saw the founding of many new fraternal orders, the rise and influence of a lot of them, and large swaths of the population being members of one, or in many cases, multiple fraternal orders. According to Secret Societies in America, Foundational Studies in Fraternalism by William D. Moore. Sorry, I had to cite it. I had to cite my source. As many as 40% of the U.S. population belonged to a fraternal order of one kind or another during the peak of this golden age. 40%.
Excuse me?
40%.
So that's like basically all because like that's not counting children, I'm assuming.
I'm not sure what it was counting. I'm not sure. I also don't know if
women?
it was. I don't know. because I didn't actually read this book, but
we get excluded from clubs a lot.
And fraternal organizations too. So I'm not sure if it was like 40% of everyone or 40% of just like the real people, like white males. But I thought that was just like a crazy percentage. And of course, a lot of people belong to more than one. So this golden age entered decline roughly around the Depression/World War II era. And today fraternal orders are well known, but not as well attended. And many of their memberships are aging. It wasn't coincidence that this is when fraternal orders saw declining influence in membership. Post-Depression America is when the government started taking a much larger role in providing social safety net services, from the New Deal programs of FDR to the Great Society programs of Lyndon Johnson. So the things that these groups provided, or maybe sort of failed to provide in the case of the Great Depression, we're now seeing competition from the U.S. government. And one way you can kind of think of these fraternal orders as bridging the gap between the fall of guilds and the Universal Catholic Church and the rise of the modern welfare state mechanisms.
Interesting.
We'll talk more about why that is, though. So it is into this milieu of... Sorry.
You gotta commit, dude.
Milieu. Oh, God. Of American golden age of fraternalism that one Joseph Cullen Root in 1883 created the topic of today's show.
Oh, my God.
The modern Woodmen of America.
What? I've never heard of that. Is it lumberjacks?
Not at all.
The modern Woodmen
of America.
Of America.
Now, a lot of what I've already talked about regarding fraternal societies applies to the Woodmen. They are a fraternal order that provides a lot of the same functions and services that we've already talked about, and they were founded right smack dab in the middle of the American golden age of fraternalism, when many other fraternal orders were being founded or swelling their membership. So why are we talking about this group in particular?
Yeah, I need to know.
We will get to that. But first, let's talk about the first thing we always talk about, the aforementioned charismatic leader.
Ooh, my favorite one. I think that's my favorite one.
Mr. Root, Mr. Joseph Root.
Mr. Root.
There actually wasn't a ton of information about Mr. Root online.
Ooh.
But I did learn some interesting things about him. To me, he definitely seems like one of those like late 1800s-ish, like industrial titan type guy, like, you know, like a Teddy Roosevelt type, but like not that he was a industrial titan, but you know what I mean? Like,
he's a Dagny Taggart.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a John Galt.
Right. He's totally like one of those guys. Yeah. Except instead of being a titan of industry, he was a titan of fraternal orders. So he was born in 1844 in Chester, Massachusetts. In his young and early adult life, he operated a wide variety of business ventures, from law practice to owning a grain elevator.
Whoa.
To selling insurance.
What is a grain elevator? Is it that thing?
It's the thing. So you like, there's, you know, that like
that thing
escalator that takes the grain up.
Yeah, that's what that is.
I think so.
And this guy did business in that.
Yes.
Okay.
And also law, and also selling insurance.
Sure. Yep. I believe him.
Because it was the 1800s, so that's what you did. You just did all kinds of wild stuff. Whatever, man. I make video game, and I also have a podcast. He became heavily involved in Freemasonry, and the paper I read about him listed a whole crazy slew of titles and awards and achievements he unlocked in the organization, culminating in his receiving the 33rd degree rank in 1899, which, again, this isn't an episode about Freemasons, but I'm pretty sure the 33rd degree rank is like the highest thing you can get as a Freemason, I think.
33rd sounds pretty high.
I think it's the highest.
Jeez.
Oh, but he was a multitasker.
Oh, God.
In addition to being a Freemason, well, like a super Freemason, he was also a member of other fraternal organizations. The Knights Templar, the Knights of Pythias, whatever the hell that is, the Independent Order of Oddfellows, which I think I mentioned them earlier.
I think I want to be a part of that.
They were huge at the time. The Iowa Legion of Honor, the Ancient Order of United Workmen.
What? I want to be part of that.
And VAS.
What?
Which evidently stands for Vera Amicita Sempiterna. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's Latin for true friendship is eternal.
Oh, I want to be part of that one. That's so
Isn't
sweet.
That nice?
Yeah.
It's nice. Yeah.
Yes. I like that.
So I know very little about these groups at the moment because they're not the topic, but what I do know is that sounds like a lot to have on your plate.
Yes.
I just named 6 groups in addition to the Masons where he was a 33rd degree Freemason.
I mean, there was no TV.
That's insane.
There was no TV at the time. There's nothing else to do besides
right. It was just this.
Groups. Yeah.
That's a good point. So they didn't have Netflix to binge.
Some probably didn't have like books or like games.
They had books?
I'm saying some of them may not have had books. Books weren't invented until 60 years ago. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's true.
They might not have books. They might not have anything to do.
That's actually a good point.
Well, hanging out with your friends.
We do talk about this a little bit later, but like that's one of the things that fraternal organizations did at the time is like they were entertainment, right? Like they did activities, they did social activities, they did games. Like back then, you didn't even have professional sports,
right?
Football hadn't even been really. Well, I guess by the 1880s, it had just been invented.
There was no NFL,
but there was certainly no NFL, and actually, football didn't look anything like you might think football would look like at the time. Anyway, I still think it's crazy all the groups he belonged to.
Yes.
Oh, but wait, there's more. You'll notice that nothing in my list there said Woodmen of America.
Oh, shit.
Well, I guess being heavily involved in 7 fraternal organizations wasn't enough to satisfy Mr. Root's life ambition, so he said, I guess I should start my own fraternal organization.
Is that a direct quote?
More or less. I'm assuming that he said something similar to that. Which, from his perspective, honestly, it's not a bad idea, considering how much experience he had with the model. The possibly apocryphal story of the founding is put so well in the article that I'm just going to quote it here verbatim. I can't really paraphrase this better than the writer states. Oh, actually, I think I forgot to mention this, but the writer of this article about Joseph Cullen Root, this article that was like the only place I could find information about this guy, the writer was himself a 32nd degree Freemason. So
jeez.
He was just kind of doing like history and other important Freemasons or something. Anyway, regarding the founding of the Woodmen, quote, in July 1882, Root heard a sermon by Reverend Sidney Crawford at First Congregational Church in Lyons, Iowa, about pioneer woodmen clearing away the forest to provide for their families. Thus, he was inspired to organize Modern Woodmen of America as a society which would clear away problems of financial security for its members.
So it was related to lumberjacks.
He felt that, sort of, related, yeah, but like you didn't have to be a lumberjack to be in it. Mm-mm. Continuing the quote, he felt the use of the term ancient by so many fraternities was dishonest and thus described his order as modern.
Oh, shit.
That's why he called them Modern Woodmen.
I really like that.
He saw the word woodman as alluding to a noble vocation. Since his order was native to American soil, he felt that the addition of the words of America was quite appropriate. And he saw his brainchild as linked with his name of Root and visualized an order growing in the same manner as a tree in the forest grows from its roots. Isn't that adorable?
It's really sweet.
And he was like, my last name's Root. I'm going to call it Woodman.
Yeah, that's cute.
Continuing the quote, on January 5th, 1883, Root established Modern Woodmen of America at Lyons. He wrote the ritual and served as the first venerable consul of Pioneer Camp No. 1 and the first head consul of the new order. In 1888, the Royal Neighbors of America was established as a ladies' auxiliary.
Ooh.
By 1889, there were 42,694 modern woodmen.
That's not
6 years.
That's not a small amount.
That's great. I hope we have 40,000 listeners in a few years from now. It'd be awesome.
Ever.
Anyway, that's the end of the quote. It's just about the founding of the Woodmen from Mr. Root. The article goes on to say that by the time of Root's death in 1913, the Woodmen of the world had 700,000 members and over 10,000 camps, which I think are like chapters or lodges. Just about all of these fraternal organizations use that same model that kind of comes from the Freemasons. And even including like the Greek system, they're called chapters. So they all have that same sort of organization. Yeah. Anyway, all of this is to say, Joseph Cullen Root, the founder of the Woodmen, was a hella impressive dude.
Yeah.
So how weird does this sound so far?
Not that weird. It sounds, I mean, like
a little weird.
It doesn't sound any weirder than anything else I know about any of these groups.
Yeah.
Anyway.
A little weird with the ritual of the crazy names and titles.
But
not super weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it gets weirder.
I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Did you catch that I have used 2 different names to refer to the Woodmen in my story about Mr. Root?
No.
Oh. Well, that's because there are actually 2 entirely or mostly entirely different organizations.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
There are 2 different Woodmen's organizations.
Why and how?
Well, today, their names are as follows. Woodmen Life and Modern Woodmen of America.
Okay.
When Root founded the Woodmen, it was Modern Woodmen of America. It was that group. And as we mentioned, it was in 1883. And then there was a mysterious line that I read in Wikipedia. After internal dissension within the MWA, Root was ejected from the organization that he had founded.
Oh, shit.
So this was a citation Wikipedia back to this here book.
Is that why you got that book?
Among other things, but yes. Which I will read to you from right now. So this textbook, Fraternal Organizations, says Root earlier had founded the Modern Woodmen of America in 1883. A few years into the life of Modern Woodmen, brought a feud between him and the head physician of the society. Both men were expelled, and so Root set out to form a new society, which led him to Omaha, Nebraska. All I can find is that there was like a feud between him and this head physician, and there was just some drama that went on, but like apparently wound up in mutual expulsion and like out of the thing that he himself founded.
Oh man, I want to be privy to that.
I know. It seems pretty extreme for a dispute, but I don't know. It was the 1800s, so like dispute maybe meant that they were like about to duel with pistols and kill each other.
Right. They probably did that thing where they take off a glove and slap each other in the face.
Yeah. Maybe. Say put up your dukes. I'll just assume that it was extreme. In any event, being expelled from the organization he himself founded didn't get to old Joe Root. No, sir.
Did he found another one?
He just 7 years later, remember I said he went to Omaha? Just 7 years later, after moving to Omaha, he founded the Modern Woodmen of the World.
Oh my God.
Sounds ballsy. A little bit fucky. It sounds a little bit like, I'm gonna try this again.
Yeah.
But
it's gonna be better.
Both kept existing and they both still exist today.
What?
Yeah. So remember I said the two names? So Modern Woodmen of America is the first one, and then Woodmen Life is Woodmen of the World. They just renamed themselves.
Where is my TV show about this?
I know.
I
know. I really want to know more about, especially like this early sort of like founding drama.
The nice thing though is that if we don't have facts, we can just make it up.
I think we should make a lot of it up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's pretty fucking drama-y.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like I don't know why he named it that. Maybe he wanted to like sound more impressive than Woodmen of America. So this time he's like, of the world.
Right.
And then anyway, shortly thereafter they dropped Modern, so it was just Woodmen of the World. And then just a tiny bit later in 2015, Woodmen of the World rebranded themselves to Woodmen Life.
2015, you said?
2015, yeah. Just a tiny bit later.
Okay.
Yes. You might be wondering why in 2015 they would be giving enough of a shit to rename themselves.
That is definitely the first thing that I thought.
We'll get to that.
Okay, good.
So let's talk just a little bit about how modern Woodmen of America function and are organized today. From modernwoodmen.org via Wikipedia, quote, as a fraternal organization, the society is organized around a lodge system, which we talked about. They call them chapters, summit chapters, and youth service clubs. These groups offer fellowship and community service opportunities for members, all pretty standard stuff for fraternal organizations. In 2016, Modern Woodmen members were part of 2,466 chapters.
Wow.
283 summit chapters, whatever the hell that means, and 782 youth service clubs nationwide.
All right.
Modern Woodmen members across the United States participate in numerous activities to socialize, learn, and volunteer in their communities. Members unite for volunteer efforts to provide money, donations, hands-on labor, and other resources to improve lives in their communities. The organization's matching fund program matches money raised by individual chapters for community members or local organizations in need.
Sounds pretty good.
Pretty decent fellows. Now let's talk about Woodmen Life. They do similar lodge-style organization, and they also do charitable work. They seem to also be involved in a lot of disaster relief efforts, and they were super into patriotism. So here's another quote.
Okay.
Quote, the organization's patriotic program includes presenting flagpoles and American flags to schools, fire departments, parks, and other public places. Woodmen Life is the second largest distributor after the U.S. government of flags throughout the U.S.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Distributing more if you'd said, like, who's the second largest distributor? I would have been like, I don't know.
Right.
Also, I didn't know these people existed.
Right.
Anyway, they distribute more than 2.5 million flags since 1947.
Wow.
They also do a lot of 9/11 patriotic stuff. Continuing the quote, the organization's annual In Honor and Remembrance ceremonies pay tribute to those involved in the September 11 attacks of 2001. More than 2,400 ceremonies have been held since the program began in 2002. To mark the 5th anniversary, Woodmen Life hung two 50 by 100 foot American flags on the Woodmen Life Tower.
What?
Yeah, on the Woodmen Life Tower.
What is that?
Twin beams of light with a combined 15 billion candela, which is like really bright spotlights, illuminated the Omaha skyline each evening during the week of September 11th, 2006, in tribute to the World Trade Center. End quote.
Explain.
Yeah, we'll get to that. They also had more information available on Wikipedia via their website, this is Woodmen Life, about how they are organized. They had much more information on how they're organized than MWA did, and it's pretty ritualistic. The head chapter is referred to as the sovereign camp.
What?
And they refer to U.S. states in which they operate as jurisdictions or head camps. Then at the local level, chapters are called either just camps or courts or groves. I think groves comes from, I don't know if it's still this, but groves comes from back when they started allowing women into the organization. They were organized instead of camps, they were organized into groves.
Okay.
I don't know, I guess grove sounds more feminine. I have no idea. And it gets even more ritualistic and strange if you go into their history when they're really doing like fraternal organization-y stuff. So I'm going to pull the handy dandy textbook here again.
Yes, please.
To illustrate. Okay, quoting from this textbook now. Like many fraternal benefit groups, the WOW, so it's funny they call them WOW, is like World of Warcraft, way before World of Warcraft though. Woodmen of the World, the WOW has a ritual containing agendas for initiation, installation, and funeral rites.
Whoa.
The lodge has a floor plan portrayed in the ritual manual and shows one item quite different from most floor plans of other fraternal societies. In most other lodge rooms, an altar stands in the center of the room, but in the WOW camp plan, there's a giant tree stump in place of the altar. The ritual attempts to teach its 4 great principles of the Woodmen of the World. The first principle is hospitality, the second is service, the third is loyalty, and the fourth is protection.
Those are all good.
So this is less ritually, but more just like kind of what they do as a fraternal benefit society. The order sponsor, and this is, by the way, a little bit further in their past, so just to level set. The order sponsors social and recreational activities such as dinners, dances, bingo parties, picnics, various athletic events. It awards scholarships, supports Korean and Vietnamese orphans, donates life-saving equipment to hospitals, and of course, assists its own members who need temporary material and financial help. So a lot of like interesting ritual, and there's a little more even that we'll get to.
Okay.
But let's get into even more additional weird stuff.
Yeah, give me that dirt.
Yeah, the weird. And it's like maybe not necessarily weird, but like very unexpected.
Okay, that's the best kind of weird.
So yeah, I mean, the Woodmen are full of surprises. Maybe they like to stay on theme because they're like ambushing people in the forest or something. I don't know. Oh. But anyway, let's start with modern Woodmen of America. We'll talk about 2 things: their drill teams and their sanatorium. So these aren't all that weird if you're familiar with fraternal orders. They generally sponsor all kinds of public works and services. In fact, we just talked about that as it's like one of the things that they do, and MWA is no exception. Their drill teams are called Forester drill teams, and according to the Time article, again via Wikipedia, about this, these drill teams are one of the most distinctive features of the MWA.
Okay.
They began in 1894, so like not too long after they founded, and actually became famous nationally in the early part of the century for the events and parades they held, even earning a visit to the White House, back when that was good.
That was subtle.
Thanks.
I liked it.
Anyway, all the different chapters of the Forester drill teams had wildly different uniforms and style, so their demonstrations came to be known as rainbow parades.
Oh.
Which, to my knowledge, has nothing to do with gay pride parades today, I don't think.
Boo.
But maybe I didn't dig deep enough, but I don't think it has anything to do with one another. But in any case, pretty ritualistic.
Right.
The other thing I mentioned with the MWA was their sanatorium. The Modern Woodmen of America funded a massive state-of-the-art for the time tuberculosis sanatorium during the TB epidemic of the early 1900s. The $1.5 million, and that's in 1907 money, facility was named one of the most outstanding TB treatment centers by the American College of Surgeons. And they offered room, board, treatment, medicine, dental, laundry, all for free.
Shit.
No expense to the patient.
Wow.
Part of why the MWA made this their mission was that at the time, TB was a leading cause of death for their members.
Oh.
But they also had a vested interest in their members' health beyond that, which we'll get to.
I don't like the sound of that. That was very ominous.
No, that's not ominous. Oh, well, maybe. I don't know.
It's not ominous.
It's not. It's not. Trust me, it's not ominous. Everything's fine. Anyway, after antibiotics got invented and TB went away, the sanatorium declined and eventually closed sometime around the mid-century. Okay.
I want to say but actually no, it's good. It's good that it closed.
Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's good because we got rid of the disease. All right. On to Woodmen Life. I feel like their random stories are even more unexpected. So, drill teams in hospitals, okay. But Woodmen Life is known for tombstones and radio broadcasts.
Okay, that's badass. I like that.
So keep in mind, Woodmen Life was formerly Woodmen of the World, and that was the second organization that Joe Cullen founded.
Right.
So they had an interesting program.
Wait. Who's Joe Cullen?
Joseph Cullen Root.
Joseph Cullen Root. Thank you.
Joe Root. Joe Root. Joe Cullen Root. Sorry, I probably should have said that because Cullen was his middle name. Anyway, the Woodmen of the World had an interesting program early on that was appealing to members and would-be members, which was that, if you remember, they provided you, upon your death, with a tree stump-looking tombstone.
That's fucking cool.
Actually, it was a couple different kinds, but it's actually pretty cool looking. Do you want to take a look?
Yes! Sorry, I don't know why I said that so aggressively.
So here's one of them.
That's not wood?
No, I don't think so.
That's
a tombstone.
Cool.
Let me see if I can find the other one.
It's very detailed. It looks like it's made out of tree.
So here's another one.
Well, how do I get that?
Well, you can't anymore. Because they stopped doing it because it was too expensive. Oh, they didn't actually do it very long. It was like early 1900s they stopped doing it.
That is really cool looking, though.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool looking, right? And like you can see these all across the country.
Oh my God, road trip.
Well, and actually next time we're at Cinespia, I'm definitely going to be looking for one.
Ooh, there's some at the Hollywood Cemetery. Is that the Hollywood Cemetery?
I have no idea, but I'm going to look. But yeah, so they have, as you saw from the picture, they have carvings of some of their important symbols and sayings. They have a maul and a wedge and an axe. They often have a dove of peace with an olive branch. Often they have an inscription. It says, "Woodmen do not lie," and "Here rests a woodman of the world."
I didn't know that they didn't lie.
Well, they say they don't.
That could be a lie. Probably.
Well, it definitely is because everybody lies. In any case, now a left turn into radio broadcasts.
Yeah, that's makes less sense than tombstones.
I know. In 1922, Woodmen of the World started radio broadcasting on the station WOAW.
Okay.
And a few years later, they just changed it to WOW.
Okay.
So yeah,
what did they say?
They actually wanted WOW to begin with before WOAW. But they had to wait for a service ship that had the call sign to be retired first. And the ship was named the Henry J. Bibble. Wait. So that makes no sense why that was called WOW.
Okay, there was a ship.
There's a ship called the Henry J. Bibble whose call sign was WOW.
Government ship.
I think so.
And its name.
It was a service ship. It was the Henry J. Bibble.
Henry J. Bibble.
And its call sign was WOW. And that's why they couldn't use WOW for the radio station.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, and it's like super tangential, but it was just so weird that I wanted to say it.
No sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lick of sense. Anyway, there were a bunch of legal battles over ownership of the station due to the Woodmen's status as a nonprofit.
Okay.
And it went back and forth before they finally divested themselves of ownership through a stock sale in 1958. But not before spawning a television station called WOW TV.
Excuse me, can we watch it right now?
Which apparently was the first television station where a small nobody guy named Johnny Carson worked.
What?
Yes.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Explain.
There's no explanation. It's just he worked at this station.
Oh my God.
So this whole broadcast media thing seems like really weird to me.
Yes.
Until I read an article about the Woodmen that explained it thusly.
Okay.
And actually, you kind of hit on this yourself before. Before TV, radio, internet, video games, and modern pro sports, fraternal organizations were a big, big way that people organized socially and entertained themselves. So under that lens, when an entertainment technology appears, it makes sense that a fraternal organization like the Woodmen would be interested in getting into it.
That makes a lot of sense,
So all of a sudden, it's like, oh, that's right. That's all people were doing. So now that people are doing this other thing, they're like, well, let's get into it.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So I have a confession to make.
You're one of them.
I'm a Woodman this whole time. No. You probably were expecting this since I've done this in the show many times now, but I buried one of the leads on this topic.
Oh, shit.
All the way to now. Okay. Oh, I know, crazy. Whoa, dramatic. Whoa. But I did drop a bunch of little hints throughout the show, or maybe some big hints. I don't know. Not because I'm clever, but because I couldn't really avoid talking about some of the things. And one of the hints will actually be the episode title.
Okay, that doesn't help me now.
I know, because I haven't shared it with you yet. But anyway, let's start with Woodmen Life. I completely neglected talking about the thing that they are actually most known for, the thing that, in fact, Mr. Root sort of founded the organization to provide, and pretty much the only thing that they do now.
Okay.
Can you guess what it is? Probably not.
MLM.
The answer is sell life insurance products.
Woodmen Life. That sounds like a life insurance product place.
And that's why they changed it to that in 2015.
That's why they changed it to Woodmen Life? That's weird.
Just to better reflect that.
Okay.
Does that wig you out?
I don't know if I'm wigged, but I'm definitely weirded.
Yeah. So I'm going to level with you here. Like, I was actually researching a different group altogether when I ran into a quote that said, many fraternal orders provided financial security for their members, and most that continue today have basically just become insurance companies.
What?
And I was just like, wait, what?
Why?
So I stopped researching that thing, and that's when I was like, wait, what? Hold on, I need to look this up.
Oh my God,
then I looked those up, these companies and orgs and whatnot, that's how I discovered the Woodmen.
Is insurance a cult?
I think so, is what I'm saying. I don't know. So this is not to say that most insurance companies have their roots in fraternal organizations, nor is it saying that most fraternal organizations still exist today and they're all insurance companies. But what it is saying is, like, of the few that survive, many of them are basically just insurance companies now.
Gotcha.
Not like the Freemasons, not things like that, because the Freemasons don't actually sell insurance, I found, I think.
Oh my God, I would buy Freemason insurance in a heartbeat.
Modern Woodmen of America and Woodmen Life are basically just insurance companies now.
That's so strange.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. Yes, at first that statement seems bizarre. And it actually is pretty bizarre when I think a group like, I don't know, I think about like the Freemasons, right? And the Woodmen are very much like them. And they have all these rituals and I don't know. And now I'm thinking about them like being all about life insurance. It does seem pretty bizarre.
Yeah, it's a sharp left turn like
why
you
would
said.
Secret societies sell life insurance?
Yeah, why?
But when I dug into this question, it actually started to make more and more sense.
Oh, God.
The sense began with how America looked between the Civil War and the Great Depression. Let me read you this quote from an article I read entitled, quote, Goat Rituals and Tree Trunk Gravestones, The Peculiar History of Life Insurance by Lisa Hicks.
That I want to read that.
And yeah, the title of that article was like one of the things that kind of piqued my curiosity on this whole episode.
That is a great title.
Great title. Quote, this was a profoundly insecure time before Americans had Social Security, when anxieties about death and finances ran deep in the American psyche. In response to these fears, the Woodmen of the World Order and its progenitor and competitor, the Modern Woodmen of America, made life insurance approachable and fun by packaging it in the familiar fraternal order culture of the day.
Ooh.
The two Woodmen societies succeeded in selling fraternal insurance where others failed, thanks to their innovations, which include offering distinct tombstones, flaunting axe-twirling pageantry.
What?
Yeah, we're talking about some ritual here now. Holding clandestine rituals that involve slapstick pranks and mechanical goat rides.
You need to stop.
Today,
what?
I am still quoting this article, my friend. Today, both organizations still exist as insurance companies, but they've shed the fraternal antics. It's hard to imagine their previous incarnations, which resembled a combination of LinkedIn, GoFundMe, and Jackass.
Oh my God.
I had to quote that.
That was an incredible piece of writing.
Right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
I know. A minute.
I know. That's how I felt. In fact, my next word here was just, I kind of like am understating this, I guess now, but my next sentence was, I found that last bit pretty evocative.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. that hit me deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that evocative to say the least.
Yeah, I could very much picture it in my wonderland. But let's unpack this whole thing a little bit more. What's being said here basically is this was a particular need being served during a particular time in American history before modern medical advances, before modern food science, when it was both easier to die and when no social safety net existed.
Right, like people were dying left, right, and center.
These fraternal orders filled that need. This particular article goes on to describe issues around surviving family members not being able to protect themselves from creditors.
Oh, geez.
And then a whole aspect of cultural shame in accepting financial help. After all, if you needed financial help, according to the American ethic of the time, you were just lazy.
Oh.
And also according to some American ethics now. So there was a social stigma around needing support as well. So the whole fraternal and secrecy aspect of these organizations helped mask that stigma. They could support families of deceased family members without stigma because they were secretive to begin with.
Oh.
And this financial support aspect was no exception. And besides, they're all your brother woodmen. It's totally different getting financial support from that direction, right? It's totally different.
Right.
And appearances are everything.
Oh, jeez.
And there's another aspect of fraternal orders providing life insurance to their members that actually makes a whole lot of sense. Let's talk a bit more about the woodmen's crazy rituals.
Yes, please.
Yes, these rituals served a very crucial initiation purpose. They drew big, bright borders between insiders and outsiders, allowing insiders to participate in this insurance function, which was super important. But many of these rituals were also inspired by Freemason rituals. Heavily inspired. Makes sense, because Joe Root was a 33rd degree Freemason.
Yeah.
And Freemasons just loved reminding their members that they were going to die. So,
wait, they did?
Oh, yeah. So many of the rituals and rites performed in these secret societies, and again, sort of like influenced by the Freemasons, were about your own mortality. I even read one that was about like you were like confronted like a skeleton at the end of the ritual or something like that. Yeah. A lot of their rituals were about mortality.
What?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about a lot of like religious rituals.
Well, yeah, but I just
even like the Catholic Mass.
I absolutely think of those as being about mortality and like those kinds of things. I just never associated that with Freemasonry. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So again, we totally need to do an episode on them, but they do that. And remember earlier when we talked about the tree stump gravestones?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all part of it. Mr. Root's intention with that ritual was, much like a life insurance policy, to provide financial assistance to families of deceased members. Headstones are expensive.
Right.
And back then they were prohibitively expensive for many people. So doing this was essentially the equivalent of writing a huge check to the widow and surviving family.
Wow.
So to me, fraternal orders and life insurance actually started sounding a lot less like oil and water and more like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
After all, we are all immortal. We all had a lot of anxiety about it because it was 1899 and everyone's dying from tuberculosis. And nobody wants to be seen accepting assistance. So what are we going to do about it?
Yep, this fills all those needs.
Oh, life insurance. Here's another quote from that same article, that same beautiful article. This one's a tad long, but, Ms. Hicks does such a good job of explaining things that I wanted to read it all to you. Quote, "The Woodmen tweaked another feature of the fraternal orders, most of which had solemn initiation rituals loosely based on old Masonic ceremonies that symbolically forced recruits to confront their own mortality. Most societies had some macabre obstacle courses that ended with the young man facing a human skeleton lit by candles. According to As Above, So Below, in an early Woodmen of the World initiation, the blindfolded candidate wore weights symbolizing the, quote, selfishness, hatred, and prejudice, unquote, he had to shed as he navigated a dangerous path, which involved wood boards on rollers, before he was allowed to see, quote, the light of woodcraft. The modern woodmen took such rites to new levels. They'd challenge recruits to put their hands in fake molten lead. Others were subjected to spanking machines and collapsing chairs.
What?
The Ferris wheel coaster Goat, patented and sold by a company co-owned by modern woodman member Ed DeMoulin, would flip the unsuspecting rider upside down and fire blanks from its rear.
I don't understand what's happening right now.
Before I finish this quote, would you like to see art of this thing?
I don't understand what it is. So yes?
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, he's blindfolded too.
Why did it fire blanks?
Why is he blindfolded? Why is he riding a goat? I don't know.
What is happening right now?
Allow me to continue the quote from Ms. Hicks.
Oh my God.
What did a slapstick goat gag have to do with selling insurance?
Explain to me.
Everything. Besides reminding recruits that death was always at the door, the Woodmen had to come up with all kinds of gimmicks to get people to join, Lechler explained. So this is somebody else that she's quoting. When an initiate had to ride the goat, everyone else would sit around the lodge room and have a big belly laugh. If you rode the goat, then you were in with the clique. Then that new member would bring in his buddies so the woodmen could prank them.
What's the prank there?
It's just forcing people to ride a weird goat.
That's not a prank.
Well, to them it was, and they thought it was hilarious because remember, they didn't have TV. What it did help was build their insurance company. End quote.
I'm upset about a lot of things that are happening right now.
Yeah, I know. So again, at first it felt really weird that secret societies were distributing and selling life insurance to their members.
Yes.
But after digging into it, it kind of seems a bit like a natural fit.
Yes.
I think the Woodmen still feel really bonkers because, like, both of them now are, like, official-ass insurance companies. Like,
yeah,
it still feels weird that, like, they were doing this goat stuff. And, like, today they're, like... Because you think of insurance companies, like, they're... most insurance is sold by, like, financial institutions.
Right.
And financial institutions are, like... people in suits and like
gotta wear a tie every day.
Doing, calculating numbers and spreadsheets and blah, blah, blah. And these guys are like,
your two favorite
we're doing
things.
Weird secret rituals behind closed doors and like with skeletons and goats and
we're afraid of mortality and we're trying to process it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess it really does make sense for an organization that part of its function is to help you process your mortality is involved in end of life stuff.
Absolutely. And they were also community support. So if you combine the sort of like helping the members process the mortality and also like we're here to support the community.
Right.
Those things, A plus B equals life insurance.
Explain me this. Why aren't religions do this?
I don't.
Is it because they're 501c3s? Or
well, I mean, Woodmen were not for profit for a while too. They might actually still be. I'm not sure. So I don't have a good answer to that. I mean, the bottom line is like, religious communities are already sort of that.
True.
They just don't necessarily they didn't necessarily make that transition the way that Woodmen did from like, here's some money in a tombstone.
Right.
To like, I'm an insurance salesman.
Right.
At least that's my take on it. I am not a scholar. So the Woodmen are not the only ones, and they're far from the first. We've talked a lot about American history tonight, but actually these types of fraternal orders, which I guess this is a good time to mention that fraternal orders that provide this sort of communal / financial insurance to their members are also called mutual benefit societies. But these types of fraternal orders actually got their start in England shortly before they got big over here, which brings us back to that term that I mentioned way earlier when talking about the history of fraternal orders, friendly societies. So Britain got their start with this, and that was what friendly societies did. They were like mutual benefit, providing financial assistance to their members. That's what they were for.
Gotcha.
Speaking of other mutual benefit societies, so my family, as you know, is Catholic, and my dad belongs to the Knights of Columbus at his local church.
Oh, right.
So I had a brief chat with him about them and how they operate. They're one of the more well-known fraternal orders, I think.
I've heard of them.
And they're still very active today. And like the Woodmen and many other fraternal orgs, they were founded in the late 1800s, 1882 to be specific, by a Catholic priest. So they were founded like right during that golden age with all the other ones.
Right. I want to know one that like wasn't made during that time.
Well, the Masons.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Never mind.
And per the stories my dad told me, they have a similar focus on rituals. So, for example, you have to basically like hold the equivalent of a talking stick to have the floor to speak at meetings.
Oh, I love that.
And there are also several degrees that you have to progress through before you're even allowed to attend. And they also sell life insurance to their members.
Wait, what?
Today.
No.
You can buy life insurance from the Knights of Columbus.
Did you know that before talking to your dad?
I did not know that.
Damn.
But then when he said that, I was like, aha!
Right.
Aha.
That is super cool.
Back to the big dogs, the Freemasons, real quick, though. So it seemed like from my research that officially they don't sell insurance products.
Okay.
I couldn't figure out if they used to, but they definitely don't now. But they allow you to use your life insurance policy as a charitable gift. So like say you want your policy to pay out to some charity that the Masons support when you die.
Well, that's cool.
But I also found a site called scottishrite.org/insurance.
Okay.
And they listed a whole bunch of things. So they have sponsored Medicare supplement insurance plan, Scottish Rite sponsored long-term care insurance plan, Scottish Rite sponsored group cancer expense plan, Scottish Rite sponsored group term life insurance plan.
Group cancer?
And all of no, it's a expense plan.
Group cancer.
And then Scottish Rite sponsored Lifeline Screening of America. So none of these had any links to them, but they all had like numbers you could call.
Did you try calling one?
No, I didn't because I didn't have time.
No, also smart because that's definitely how you get tracked down.
Right. Totally. I'm sure that's what's happening. But yeah, it says Scottish Rite members are guaranteed up to $25,000 coverage without a medical exam or single health question. This is for the term life insurance plan. And coverage is portable. It doesn't lapse when you leave the job and lose your regular company group life insurance coverage. So I don't know. Like, it seems like the Scottish Rite folks. Yeah. So the Scottish Rite is like another subset of Freemasons,
right?
Like Freemasons or like Shriners. But like I couldn't figure out whether that meant that they actually sell life insurance. Because like there were other sites where they said like Freemasons don't sell insurance, and then this site was like, here's some insurance. So I don't really know. Maybe it's just confusing. Them. Maybe that sect does it. I don't know.
Interesting.
So 2 more quick facts to wrap up the talk about the insurance portion of today's discussion. And I bet you didn't think we'd be talking about insurance tonight, did you?
Nope.
On the episode. Well, first of the facts is we weren't actually talking about insurance.
What?
We were talking about assurance.
What?
I only just learned this while doing research on the topic, but what we think of as, quote, insurance is actually technically 2 different products.
Excuse me?
That for convenience sake, we've just lumped under one name, insurance. Insurance...
I don't like where this is going. I don't like any of this.
...is buying protection against something that might happen, like fire or flood.
Okay.
Assurance is buying protection against something that will happen, like death.
Oh, damn.
So life insurance is actually not insurance. It's assurance.
Wow.
So you can go sound like a know-it-all asshole at your next cocktail party now.
Cannot wait. Somebody invite me to a party.
I know. Another thing you might have been wondering why, although we did talk about this a little bit, but why by and large life insurance is handled by financial institutions now and not fraternal organizations. And of course, like even the Woodmen aren't really fraternal organizations anymore. They've transmogrified into just like insurance orgs.
It's so weird.
But the answer is, like many historical questions about the 20th century, the Great Depression. The Great Depression kind of wiped out the fraternal insurance industry for the most part, except for obviously the biggies like Woodmen, because these orgs were dependent on dues, and well, yeah, nobody could pay those in the 30s.
Yeah.
And then during the New Deal and later the Great Society programs, the U.S. government sort of took over that role of social safety net. So nowadays the government basically provides what fraternal orgs used to, and life insurance is more of a thing that you can supplement on top of that if you can afford it. And life insurance is a for-profit product now, whereas the government safety nets and fraternal insurance was, and maybe still is, I'm not sure, but was a not-for-profit thing. It was like a community thing.
Okay.
And also, actually, I didn't mention this here, but you asked me before, you were saying, wait, what? Woodman Tower?
Yeah. Explain.
This is why they have a tower, is because they're not just like a secret society. They also like have insurance money. They're also like a company in a sense. I'm
assuming the tower, there's like offices in it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not just like a bell tower. It's like a building.
But until like the middle of the century, apparently it was like the tallest tower between Chicago and the West Coast.
Where was it again?
Omaha.
Damn.
And then like Omaha built a taller tower, and then like other, cities in the Midwest and the West and whatever. But like for a long time, the Woodman Tower in Omaha was the tallest tower.
I want a show about that.
Yeah. Okay. So then, how did all these boring life insurance clubs take on such connotation as cults?
Yes.
I mean, like, look at the wild conspiracy theories surrounding the Masons. There's even a Dan Brown book about them.
Right.
And I mean, the Illuminati, like, I barely even need to talk about, right? Like,
it's like we've all had a brush with knowing what that is.
Yeah, and they're technically a fraternal organization. They were founded as a subgroup within Masonry, kind of like Shriners or the Scottish Rite, I think. But sort of like a group within a group.
Right.
A secret society within a secret society.
Like the NXIVM group that branded people.
Kind of, yeah. But it seems quaint to think of like Shriners as having world domination ambitions, but that's what conspiracy theorists think about the Illuminati.
Right.
And they're kind of similar, right?
I think honestly the Illuminati, half of it is just the name.
It could be.
The name is just
the name
intimidating and as fuck. Like, the Illuminati.
But like, they're totally...
Freemasons!
They're like the number one go-to org for conspiracy theorists.
For sure.
And as you mentioned, even regular people know about them. So, like, I guess what I want to know is why?
That's a good question.
Of course, you just said why.
Yeah.
One of your whys is, it's the name.
Oh.
Don't disagree with you.
Right.
But this brings us all the way back to the theme we discussed at the top of the episode and that popped up throughout.
Yeah.
I think the answer is ritual. These organizations, as we've talked about, are just neck deep in it. And it makes sense. As we discussed, ritual is powerful social glue. And they're also trying to, provide these sort of like insurance or assurance benefits to their communities and the community members regarding things as inevitable and scary as death.
Right.
So ritual, as we talked about, also is good in the, when there's something you're facing that's like out of your control and scary, but you kind of need to face it anyway. Ritual just sort of inevitably comes up in those scenarios. So
damn, good connection.
It totally makes sense that these organizations are very heavily inundated with ritual.
Yep.
But I also think that makes outsiders see an otherwise benign group as more cult-like, the way we did with the Irvine logo. Why that is, I can't say for sure, but maybe it's just that ritual implies meaning. Mm-hmm. And if you as an outsider don't know what that meaning is, you fill in your own meaning.
Right.
So if you live in Irvine, you're like, oh yeah, it's the Irvine company, it's whatever. Right. Or if you're a Freemason, you're like, oh yeah, we do some weird stuff, and then like whatever, we just like get some beers.
Right.
But if you're outside, you're like, oh,
what are they doing?
Irvine logo. Right. The Irvine logo can only mean that they're spying on us, and it's crazy.
Right.
And if you're, somebody talking about the Freemasons, you see their little, their what is it, they're the
like
compass and the T-square.
Yeah, something like that.
You see that and you're like, well, I don't know what that means. It must mean something. And then your brain, we have active imaginations and we like to fill in the gaps for things. So if we don't know what these rituals mean, but they definitely mean something, because otherwise why would they be there?
Right.
We fill in those gaps.
I mean, even when you and I were at Disneyland a couple, like last month or whatever, you saw somebody with that like Freemason logo tattooed on them, and you were like,
and I saw it and I was like, oh,
like, nudged me, you're like, hey, look, and we like followed her for a second because we were like, what is that?
We didn't follow her.
We definitely we
talked about her.
We stalked a little bit.
I think she had a 32nd degree tattoo.
She did. Yeah.
But yeah, so for like those Masonic or Woodmen or Illuminati rituals, conspiracy theorists, they fill in that implied meaning with wild stories that help make sense of a complex world. And again, to be fair to the conspiracy theorists, we've talked in the show today about how powerful rituals are and all that symbolic weight of rituals that go into making, 33rd degree Mason or whatever.
Right.
So you can't really blame outsiders for saying, wait, what do they need all that ritual power for?
Right.
So I'm no psychologist or anthropologist. I don't say this from any position of authority. I'm just speculating. But to me, it seems that's why, or at least one reason why, rituals make things feel or taste or seem more culty.
Yeah. No, that's a very good analysis.
So, before we get into the criteria and judgment, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that much like the rest of society at the time, many of these fraternal organizations were a bit racist or sexist. So even the Woodmen, they would only allow white male members of their groups for a while.
Not cool. Or just...
I think it was until the 30s that they didn't allow women, except for that subgroup of women they allowed towards the end of the 1800s.
Right.
But, it took a while for that to kind of open up to those folks. So as I mentioned, fraternal organizations tended to be egalitarian, across class lines.
Right.
And within their orgs, but not along other lines. They didn't, but there were a lot of groups and they had a wide range of, who they did or didn't take. And then also some formed specifically to cater to a racial minority, ethnic group, immigrant group, or whatever.
Okay.
So some were specifically for that. For example, the Knights of Columbus were specifically for Catholics, but fairly quickly the Woodmen relaxed both of these requirements.
Both of what requirements?
Both the racial and the women.
Okay.
Although I guess it wasn't quickly for women. That was 50 years. That's not quickly. Sorry. But a lot of these fraternal orgs at the time, for a long time, were pretty exclusive when it came to race and gender. But yeah, so I thought I should at least mention that because that's definitely a very valid knock on a lot of these groups is that they were pretty exclusive in some of the wrong ways.
Right.
A lot of the time. All right. So speaking of ritual, it's that time again for our own Cult or Weird ritual where we talk about Cult or Weird. Yeah, that's the name we're That's what I say when I'm talking fast because we had to turn the fan off and it's really hot in here.
Cult or Weird.
Cult or Weird. Cult weird.
It's really hot.
Anyway, it's time for our own ritual on Cult or Just Weird, where we talk about the criteria.
Okay.
Which is like a ritual involving discussing ritual. So meta.
That is pretty meta. Not a cult.
And done.
I like to have a knee-jerk reaction and then go through the criteria. So my knee-jerk reaction is, while extremely cult-like, not a cult.
Yeah, so I think we can skip criteria numero uno.
Oh shit, where is our criteria? You mean these criteria?
Yes.
These ones right here?
Yep, there you go.
Well, ritual.
Ritual, I think we can skip. That's a yes.
Ritual, yes, there is. All right. Expected harm towards the individual, socially, physically, etc. It seems like it's the opposite here.
Yeah, I think so.
Except for maybe folks being excluded, which is obviously a large...
Yeah.
But if we're just talking about the group itself...
Yeah.
The folks I think it's more about it
the members
do not
don't
have
experience
harm. I mean, like,
they're being shitty by excluding people,
right?
But they're not harming the people that they are including.
Like, the biggest harm is confronting a skeleton, and that might also be therapeutic and helpful. So
I mean, that's at least the intent, as I understand it.
Population of cult, or is it niche? That's an interesting one because the populations of these groups seem to be like relatively large. Mm-hmm. They also, like, as a concept, they're very like known, but like individual groups are not well known. And even the groups that are well known, like the Illuminati and the Freemasons, it's like, ooh, those are weird and we don't know anything about it. So it like doesn't feel mainstream. Like knowing about it feels mainstream, but like knowing about it does not feel mainstream.
Yeah, and like I know that, you know, I cited that 40% thing from back at the turn of the century. 40% of people belong to a fraternal organization. I think maybe the Woodmen might have been a household name then, but I didn't know about them now. Right. I didn't even know that secret societies sold life insurance until I did research for this episode. Right. So maybe a bit niche.
I think a bit niche. Percentage of life consumed.
I feel like our answer is always it depends for this.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't feel either way. It doesn't feel like a negative amount or like a detrimental amount of your life is consumed. Like we didn't hear, at least you didn't tell any stories of people like devoting so much time to their fraternal organization that they like keeled over dead or whatever.
Well, I mean,
or left their families behind.
No, yeah, I think, in fact, a lot of the purpose of at least of the Woodmen, but a lot of these benefit societies was so that if you did keel over for other reason, for whatever reason, that your family wouldn't be left behind financially.
Right.
So there's certainly no like, leave your family, leave the ones that love you. So there's none of that. I mean, I think that it can sort of like, you know, for a lot of these, like for Joseph Cullen Root, who was belonging to 7 of them, that probably took up a lot of his life, but as you said, it's not really necessarily negative. Like, it's consuming also like, okay, has like a... Is
TV a cult then? Because we spend all our time watching TV now.
Right. And I think consuming does have sort of a negative connotation.
Right.
It's like it's sucking your time away from other things. It's a little bit like we talked about in the Tulpas episode, where like what is considered just a variation and what is considered...
Right.
What's the word I'm looking for? Pathological.
Right.
So it's like, in this case... because it's not pathological,
right?
Even though it's taking a lot of your time, I wouldn't call it like consuming necessarily.
Right. Like pro athletes aren't well, I was gonna say pro athletes aren't necessarily in a cult, but we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, well, they are.
But I mean, like, they spend a lot of their time. Somebody going to the Olympics is not necessarily in a cult.
Right.
Oh god, maybe they are. I don't know. Are the Olympics a cult?
It probably depends on the sport.
Jesus Christ. Curling is not a cult, as far as I know.
Curling is a cult.
Anyway, I'm just saying that you can have a hobby that you really love and spend a lot of your life doing, and it's not like consuming your life in a negative or harmful way.
Yeah. So I'd say this one's pretty low too.
Charismatic leader. I'm going to say, even though we talked about what's his face, his presence still feels low.
Yeah, like he was a founder.
Right, but he wasn't like, you must all listen to me and the things that I have to say. And it's the fact that, like, you mentioned a couple times that within the organizations, they're fairly egalitarian rather than... They do have the hierarchical structure, though.
They do, but it's... I think you're right that this actually, despite the fact that he was sort of like a titanic figure of the late 1800s, like, I don't think that... He didn't come across as like... You must do what I say, and everybody is worshiping me, and it's all about what Teal says, and it's the word of Teal. It was more just like, hey, I have an idea for this thing. I should start this thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, Those are our criteria. Skipping, ritual.
Oh, that's it?
1, 2,
we did
3,
expected
4,
harm.
5, 6. Yep.
Oh, wait, no. We didn't do anti-factuality.
Oh, I skipped that one because I answered it in my head.
Oh, yeah. And so the listeners could definitely hear that.
That's very helpful for our listeners.
Yeah.
I think the anti-factuality is fairly low. It doesn't seem like that's really a part of this.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of like lying or anything going on.
Right, obfuscation or like teaching of false information. Just kind of doesn't seem like a big part of it.
Not a lot of like motivated reasoning.
Right.
Or, like...
They don't need to like justify their existence.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
My knee-jerk reaction was correct. It's not a cult.
Your knee-jerk reaction was very correct because I don't think it scored highly on anything except
ritual
and a little bit niche. But actually, now that you say that, it kind of goes like to the point I was making about like just how much ritual can flavor something as a cult.
Right.
Because we look at a lot of these things and we're like, oh, Freemasons, they're kind of like a cult, right?
Right.
And like this is basically like Freemason adjacent.
Right.
And they have just as strange rituals and do just
right.
as kind of weird stuff. And here we are on the program saying, dude, they're like super not a cult, but they have all those crazy rituals.
Right.
So that's kind of why it felt like it.
And just like really weird tidbits like life insurance and
radio broadcasts.
Yeah, radio
Johnny
broadcasts
Carson.
and Johnny Carson and wood tombstones and all this shit. So yeah. But I don't think it's a cult.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think they're just weird.
I think they're just weird. They're definitely weird.
They're definitely weird.
But as we mentioned last
weird.
week, weird is not bad.
Weird is not bad.
Weird is just a secret society selling life insurance.
So I think weird's also not necessarily good.
No.
Because I can't say that that's good. That feels neutral. Yeah, Tulpas felt good. This feels neutral.
Yeah, neutral.
Yeah.
Good to neutral. Neutral to good.
Good to neutral.
All right. So
thanks for that.
As we mentioned, we had to turn the fan off in here, so it's like incredibly hot and stuffy.
It is.
Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No.
I feel like I should like find like a Woodman of the World sign off or something.
Oh, I guess
for truth, justice, and the American way.
Sure, that. And also check out our Patreon.
Oh, right.
We've linked it on our social media. We'll do it again. Check out the show notes for this, especially if you want to listen to that Radiolab episode about the nuclear cats.
Yes, and we will link to some cool articles and websites and stuff about the Woodmen and fraternal orgs. And, of course, check out our Instagram where I'll post some of these pictures.
And don't forget to send us tell us about your creative projects right now, along with your own hometown Culture Just Weird group.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be hometown, but it might be fun if it is.
Right. Yeah, we would love to talk about it on the show. And thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. Like, that was just, it really felt nice.
Did it
like,
warm?
It was really cool.
Did it warm your cockles?
It warmed.
The cockles of your
warmed
heart?
The cockles, yes. Yeah. My cockles are very warm.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah, steaming.
Ew. Well, I guess in this room.
Okay.
Thank you to you.
You're welcome.
Good episode. And this is Kayla.
This is Chris.
And this has been Cult.
Or Just Weird.